Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to part 2 of my 2021 predictions. Now, earlier this week, I put out my Constructors' Championship predictions, which obviously means that today I will be focusing on the Drivers' Championship. Once again, though, quick little note at the start of this, as always in these types of videos, please do not take these too seriously. They will likely be absolutely terrible, and at the end of the day, it's just a little bit of fun. And just a heads up, I'm still suffering with that cold that I developed midweek, so I might sound a little bit gravelly in this one. I can only apologise. Hopefully, we're better for next week. Big week in F1. But anyway, with all that out of the way, let's crack on. Let's start then by having a look at how I think positions 11 to 20 will finish come the end of the season, starting in 20th place with Nicholas Latifi. And then in 19th place, I've gone with Nikita Mazepin. But I do expect these two to be separated by best finish rather than scoring any points. Maybe, for example, Latifi grabs a P12 and Mazepin a P11 or something along those lines. But it should be a pretty good fight this year between Haas and Williams. I'm quite looking forward to it. 18th place, I've gone with Mick Schumacher. And actually, I do think he could pick up a point this year. It may only be the one because, as I said in my team predictions, I'm not expecting much from Haas this year. And it is also worth a mention, as we've seen during his junior career, Schumacher does tend to take a little while to get up to speed when joining a new series, so let's just give him that time. I'm sure the press won't, there'll be lots of pressure on him because of his name, but let's just give him the time to develop in Formula One. 17th place, I've gone with George Russell, and you know what? I'm not just going to say that he will score a point in 2021, I'm going to say that he will do so on 2 separate occasions, at least. I've just got a real confidence about Williams this year in the progression they're making, and if we get some crazy races, why not? He's also going to be massively keen to stake a claim for a 2022 Mercedes seat. It really does feel like a very big year for George. 16th, Antonio Giovinazzi, and 15th is Kimi Räikkönen. I think we will see both drivers score multiple points as they did last year, but I'm not expecting to see each of them hit double figures or anything like that. Maybe even a very similar result to last season where they got 4 points apiece. I mean, we'll see of course, but that wouldn't be a bad season for them. And I think again it will be super close between the two drivers. They were really close last year. And Giovinazzi has really seemed to progress quite nicely in Formula One. He's not setting the world alight or anything like that, but he's doing okay. It could be a good little battle, that one. 14th, I've gone with Yuki Tsunoda, and you know, that would equal what Daniel Kvyat did last year. So for a first season in Formula One, I actually think that would represent a decent result. He's one of the drivers actually this year that I'm really hoping surprises me like he did in F2 last season, because he is a seriously quick guy. We saw that in Formula 2. And I'm hoping that not only does he surprise, but he impresses as well. He is, for me at least, 100% a driver to keep a very close eye on this year. Esteban Ocon, I've put in 13th place and Pierre Gasly 12th. Perhaps those two will be a bit controversial, I don't know. On Ocon, this is going to sound ridiculous, but I really don't have an explanation other than to say that I just think others will finish ahead of him, as obvious as that is. He was okay last year, but we definitely need to see more from him this time around, and I really hope we do. And on Gasly, yeah, he had a really impressive 2020, but if you remove his win, as harsh as that might sound, he would have been obviously much lower in the standings. And yes, that was a great result, but it's not the normal situation for AlphaTauri. So 12th feels more representative of where I think they're going to be this season in terms of outright pace. And just quickly, I've got to mention this. I still think Alpine will be keeping a very close eye on Gasly, with perhaps a view to signing him for 22 or 23. So this battle could get very tasty. In 11th place, I've gone with Lance Stroll, and no, that isn't me jumping on the anti-Stroll train in the slightest. I mean, I defend him more than most, but I think his qualifying inconsistency could really hurt him this season. It's certainly an area he's worked on and has definitely improved, but there is still work to be done. And if the midfield is as tight as I expect, he could find it tough to make his way through the field and make up for a poor Saturday. But he's not going to be cut adrift in 11th place or anything like that. He will be close to those ahead. So it could come down to 1 or 2 really good results or maybe a difficult weekend for somebody else, and that might propel him into the top 10. That was a quick run through positions 20th to 11th, so now it's on to the top 10. And this was seriously tough. I really don't know how many times I've changed this order, but this is what I've finally gone with. 10th place, Fernando Alonso, because it's pretty much what he does. Okay, some of you might say I've put him a good few places ahead of his teammate, but whatever car Alpine give him, Alonso will extract the absolute maximum from it and deliver the big results when it matters. And when it comes to a tight midfield, that could make a massive difference come the end of the year. And you know what? Extra little prediction for Alonso. I think he might even get a shot at a podium this year, and that will be quite the return to Formula One. I'm actually, and maybe this will surprise some of you, but I am actually quite looking forward to seeing him in F1 this year and seeing what he can do in that midfield battle. It's going to be really interesting. 9th place, Sebastian Vettel. I do think he will have a very good season. And I think there's a lot of people out there, including me, who are quite interested to see which Vettel Aston Martin are going to get. Maybe I'm way off or being too generous, but I get the feeling that with no real pressure on him versus what he had at Ferrari, we may well see a return to form for the German. So whilst I'm not expecting him to hop in that car immediately and make Aston Martin a top 3 challenger, I mean, they will be in the fight for the top 3, but he's not going to turn up and make them the 3rd best team just because he's a 4-time world champion. But he should have a good season. I have to say as well, just kind of adding to that Alonso thing, the idea of Vettel and Alonso battling it out again in such close quarters is seriously exciting. And that's even if it is only for P9 and P10 in the championship. It should also be said, though, to any Seb fans out there who are frustrated I've put him down in 9th place, 9th represents a far better season than he had last season. So it's a massive step forward, and that's only a good thing. 8th, Carlos Sainz. That probably will surprise quite a few people because you all know how much I like Carlos Sainz and think he's a very, very good driver and often flies a little bit under the radar. So I've decided to stick him under the radar this year, apparently, but there you go. It is his first season with a new team, although I don't think we're looking at a Schumacher-Barrichello situation. He will still arrive as the number 2, and Leclerc is already the established driver there. I'm expecting him to do a good job, don't get me wrong, but if, for example, he takes a little bit of time to find his seat and perhaps misses some points early on, that could cost him a couple of positions in the championship quite easily. And that's not for a second saying that 8th in a field of 20 is bad, because it's really not. That's a good first season at Ferrari, a team that are trying to recover. I'm just erring on the side of caution a little bit with Sainz. Moving on, 7th place have gone with Lando Norris, which would be 2 places higher than he finished in 2020. Lando is really developing very, very nicely and seems to be making some very good progress. He was good in 2019, and as I said back then, he really surprised me with how good he was. He then built on that well in 2020 and even grabbed a podium, and I reckon we'll see even more from him this year. And he will be up on that podium at least twice. Yeah, I said that. I'm often accused of playing McLaren's chances down a little bit. Maybe I'm just bigging them up a little bit too much this year. Apologies, McLaren fans, if I've ruined it already. 6th place, Charles Leclerc. Quite frankly, if he can drag that 2020 Ferrari to 8th in the standings, there's no reason whatsoever for me to think he won't land at least 6th in a, if we believe what we're hearing, a far better car. He was so good last year. He really was. And you know, I wouldn't rule out a win for him this year either. I know you've got Mattia Binotto kind of playing down their chances and saying that they're not expecting wins until 22, but I've just got a gut feeling, I don't know why, that Charles Leclerc may well just nick one this year. 5th place, Daniel Ricciardo, yep, matching his result from last year. As for why, well, it's kind of along the same lines as Leclerc. If he can do that in a Renault, he can do it in a McLaren for me. And that's even if, alright, there wasn't that much between the two teams last year. One note of caution I will add to that, though, is what I said about Sainz. It is his first season with a new team, and so it might take him a little bit of time to really get going. And that could see him lose out to Leclerc and perhaps even Norris as well. But for whatever reason, I really don't know why, I just think he will hit the ground running this year and won't suffer at all with, I don't know, let's say new team syndrome or whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to say, just like his teammate, he will get at least 2 podiums this year. That's 4 in total for McLaren. Might sound ambitious, if I'm being honest. I actually think that's a little bit on the low side. But don't forget, they did bag 2 last season. On to the top 4 then. 4th place, I've gone with Sergio Perez. Of course, he did that last year for Racing Point. So again, kind of along the same lines as Leclerc and Daniel Ricciardo. If Perez can do that in a Racing Point, why can't he do it in a Red Bull? And I reckon he really is just what Red Bull needs this year. Of course, there is still that big question mark over how much of Gasly's and Albon's issues were down to the car and how much was down to the driver. But to be honest, even if that second Red Bull car does turn out to be a bit of a handful to drive, I think Perez, with his experience, will be able to deliver bigger and better results. I'm not honestly expecting him to beat Verstappen, and I think he will lose out in the teammate battle overall, but I'm confident he will run the Dutchman much closer than others have. He's also, all being well, going to play a massive part in keeping the Constructors' Championship somewhat, at the very least, interesting at the front. Ultimately, what I'm saying is, whilst it won't be plain sailing at all, I'm expecting him to do the job his predecessors in that seat couldn't. Which, as I said a lot last season, is making sure he's right up there in at least P4 to give Red Bull options in strategy to help them take the fight to Mercedes, and that could spice things up really nicely at the front. And if you want a bonus prediction, because apparently that's what I'm doing in this video all of a sudden, I'm going to say 2 more wins for Checo in 2021. It's the cold and flu medication. I swear it's playing with my mind. Anyway, third place, Valtteri Bottas. The Finn had more than his fair share of bad luck last year, didn't he? And despite starting strongly again, he just couldn't maintain a title challenge to teammate Lewis Hamilton. And come the end of the season, he finished just 9 points ahead of Max Verstappen, a driver who also suffered a lot of bad luck and had 4 more DNFs than Bottas. Quite frankly, even if Bottas has a faultless year, I can't see him fending off Max, assuming of course the Red Bull is anywhere near as close as it was to Mercedes last year. I said earlier that this felt like a big year for Russell, but if it's a big year for George, it's an absolutely massive year for Valtteri. I'll say it again, he's been unlucky, I'm not denying that. But we can't keep hiding him behind that, and there will come a point when Mercedes says, what is he doing that Russell couldn't do in that car? I'm so desperate for Bottas to hit the ground running again this year, but to maintain that throughout the season, I'm just not sure that he will. I feel like we're saying this every year. One thing he will do is what he's been doing pretty much for the most part ever since he signed for Mercedes, and that is doing his bit in backing up his teammate against a potentially charging Red Bull and helping the team to take another Constructors' title. I'm not going to build suspense on this. You probably know where it's going. Second place, Max Verstappen. Like I said a moment ago, he nearly took it from Bottas last year despite all of those retirements, and he was just generally really impressive last season. If Red Bull have developed the car the right way and Honda's new power unit is as powerful as they hope it is, he could easily be a consistent challenger to Lewis Hamilton. As I said in the team predictions though, I'm not going to hype all of that up again because I seem to fall for that hype every single year. I don't think there's much more Max can do for the most part. Obviously, iron out any mistakes, but that goes for most drivers. We know he's super fast and we know he can go wheel to wheel with just about anybody on the grid. I am hopeful that with potentially a more competitive teammate, he's going to have more opportunities to take wins in 2021, and that just might be enough, especially if Checo can take points away from Bottas and Hamilton. It might be enough to just, like the Constructors' Championship, keep the Drivers' title fight a little bit interesting. I'm just so desperate, as I'm sure many of you are, for a final race title decider. That all means, perhaps unsurprisingly, that I've gone for Lewis Hamilton to make it a record-breaking title number 8 in 2021. That Mercedes was dominant last season, and this car is an evolution of that one, so I can't see how it is suddenly going to fall away. Sure, Red Bull will likely improve, but so will Mercedes, and I think he's got to be the overwhelming favourite to come out on top again. He's going to be run closer. I honestly do believe that. That's not me trying to build hype. I do think Red Bull will be closer. Last year, he finished 124 points away from his teammate and was 133 clear of Verstappen. And I think Max will have that gap down to double digits this season. I mean, it might be 99, but that's still double digits. One thing I'm absolutely certain of, though, is that Lewis Hamilton will cruise through 100 poles and 100 wins this year. And for the record, just in case you want to know, he needs just 2 poles and 5 wins to achieve that. Of course, it's got to be said, you never know when it comes to Formula One. And maybe Hamilton and Mercedes will be beaten this year. However, I would be absolutely amazed if that happened. But I am really looking forward to hopefully seeing some great battling at the front, maybe even between all 4 of them. But at the very least, hopefully, we'll see that between Hamilton and Verstappen a bit more consistently in 2021. And you know, that is just what the sport needs right now. But I am going to go with title number 8 for Lewis Hamilton. That is it then. My 2021 predictions are done, but what do you guys think? You can, of course, let me know your Drivers' Championship predictions down in the comment section. And once again, please do remember, do not take these too seriously. They're just a little bit of fun. Now, I will be back next week because next week is the start of launch season. Oh yes, the 2021 season is edging ever closer. And I will, as always, be covering every single launch on the channel. So if you are interested in that, then make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the ton of content to come this season. And if you did enjoy this video, then please do drop a like as it really helps out the channel. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.